come on. I mean, hasn't the Jedi Temple doctors not prescribed Venestra some Dramamine for her travel sickness? I mean, I've never, ever...
Jedi are being hunted.
I sense this is only a small part of a larger plan.
What are you?
This is the clue we need to unravel the mystery of the Sith.
Okay, welcome to the Acolyte review show with a long time ago. Today we had episode 6, Teach/Corrupt. As always, we're likely to do spoilers, so if you haven't watched, you know what to do. In previous weeks, we've always had a guest on from the Star Wars YouTube community, and this week is no different. He actually joined us only a few weeks ago to tell us about his favourite Star Wars video games, and we received a lot of love for that episode, most likely thanks to him. It's Matt's Collection, or Matt. How's it going, Matt?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Yeah,
Good. Thank you. Yes. So, Matt, now you've actually left a comment on all of our previous Acolyte review shows, so we both know your thoughts on the series so far. But can you tell the viewers what you enjoy about it, what you don't enjoy about it?
Well, overall, I'm enjoying the show. There are a few things like the Coven ritual was wonky. I put it like up there with the slow speed chase in Book of Boba Fett. I mean, I just I don't know what they were trying to do. It could have been a lot better. There's no defending it. It just was weird.
Yeah.
But overall, I think the story is pretty good. I mean, still, even at this point, we only have like 2 episodes left, and there's a lot of unanswered questions. And I'm looking at this like it's like a one-off thing. I don't think there's going to be another season, or as far as I know, it's a one-off, kind of like Kenobi.
Yeah. I don't know.
So so you got to have everything kind of wrapped up, and with 2 episodes left, they can do it. It's just, I mean, every week there's just more questions. And but overall I'm enjoying it. Like even last night, I mean, you look at like episode 5, I mean, that was just phenomenal with it was like a 30-40 minute lightsaber battle, and it was a lot of fun. Other than Jackie getting killed, because I really like that character, and I thought that she could have, especially if they were to do more, I wanted to see more of that character. Daphne Keane, who plays her, I think, did a phenomenal job. She just really was like kind of like what you would expect of a Jedi Padawan, and just just showing that she's a capable fighter and stuff like that. And it's like, you look at like how George Lucas described lightsaber battles as like a game of chess, but every move you make puts your opponent in check, kind of thing. So that was what was going on there. And then just other than he had the Cal Kestis break apart lightsaber that nobody expected, and that's how he's able to beat her. It was really good. So I was a little disappointed in that she's gone, but it was really cool. And like this week, it's more of an episode of, you had all that action last week, so you need an episode this week to just kind of, you do need to, people are going to complain about it, the slow pace. I get it. But you kind of need it after something like that to just kind of, you got to give the characters a chance to grow a little bit. You need kind of a character episode, and that's what we got this week. But, it did move the plot a little. There's in certain ways, which I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, it's been pretty good. Is it the greatest thing ever? Like some people are saying, no, it's not. But it's not terrible either. I looked, it didn't destroy Star Wars. My copy of Empire Strikes Back is still where it's supposed to be, and everything else. All my room is, everything's still here. So it wasn't destroyed, thankfully. So, it's okay. It's just there, and I'm enjoying it. So we'll see where it goes.
Good. Yeah. Well, as you said, last week they had the massive lightsaber battle, and it was all action, really. And this week it did need to change. And to be honest, they probably couldn't top that, even if they wanted to. We're probably expecting one more big battle, I would have thought, but last week's definitely sort of stood out. So on to this week's episode then. It was a a little slower for sure. But it wasn't the flashback episode that we predicted. We kind of expected a flashback episode to sort of go over everything from before. But what are your general thoughts on this one then?
I was kind of the same way. I was expecting that flashback, and because there's two things we need to see that haven't. Well, there are a couple things we need to see that we haven't seen yet, and that's how all the witches in the coven died. Because obviously, even in that flashback, we know it's not the fire. We need to know why Osha left the order. They were kind of touching on that this week, but they didn't really go into it. So we need that. And then there's, obviously Soul knows something that happened. He knows what happened, and he's going to reveal it. I thought they were just about to do it, this week, and then they cut away. When it faded to black, I was like, oh, that's it. They're going to stop her like that. Are they going to do us like that? And then they came back for the one more little bit with Osha. But I mean, there was some really neat stuff in there. I mean, again, they just straight up came out and said that, his helmet's made out of cortosis. And I was geeking out about that last week. I was like, oh my God, they're using cortosis. This is so cool. Because I remember reading that in one of the, I think it's in the Thrawn duology where like Luke and Mara Jade come in. They're trying to hack through it with their lightsaber, and it keeps getting shorted out. It was, it's interesting stuff, and it's like everybody's trying to compare it to Beskar, and I was like, well, it's not quite like that. So it's neat to see. It's neat to see them taking stuff from Legends and putting it into canon. I do like that.
Yeah.
So
overall,
I thought the episode was good.
Yeah. Okay. Good. That's that the cortosa is something that I didn't know about until Martin brought it up last week. In fact, because we suggested it might be Beskar, but the fact that it shorted the lightsabers, and then Martin explained it to me. So it's quite interesting to have something new and different, which is, it's always good. Martin, what were your thoughts on this episode?
Well, last week's episode is, I mean, I don't want to repeat what everyone else has said, but it was such a fantastic episode in my eyes, and in the want to try and keep my attitude towards Star Wars glass half full, the thing I really liked about this episode was the scenes that had Chimere and Osha in, where he's subtly and not so subtly trying to turn her to the dark side of the Force, trying to tempt her to become his apprentice. I thought all of that was excellent. I didn't have any problems with any of the dialogue. I thought it was very, very well acted, and I think we've said Soul has been the MVP of this show so far, but I think the chap Manny something or other, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, I'm sorry, who plays Chimere, is just about taking his mantle as MVP of the show in my eyes. In terms of acting, I think he's done an excellent job. The rest of the episode, though, it was awful. I couldn't stand it. I was scratching my head. I couldn't understand why we were getting the scenes we were getting. I thought pretty much the entirety of the Soul Maze story that we were shown, you probably put in one scene. As much as I love Basil, sorry Adam Berry, but I've got to say it. I really didn't understand what was going on with him. I just don't understand why he was taking Pip to do this, and then he was stamping on her foot, and Pip was spraying stuff in her eyes. I just didn't get any of that. I couldn't understand it. And then the worst part of the episode was the Venestra stuff. I mean, I have nothing against any of the actors in this show, but we've said in the past Venestra comes across as quite wooden. And then we got to meet Mark the Jedi, and I'm sorry.
I actually found out. I found out because we thought his name was Mark, didn't we? But it's actually Mog. The subtitles were saying Mog.
Oh, was it Mog?
But,
okay, well, it sounded like Mark, but okay.
It did.
That lessens the annoyance slightly, but
not really.
Quite possibly the worst actor I've ever seen in Star Wars. I mean, Steph, when I watched it together, I watched it a second time with her, and she was just had her head in her hands. She was embarrassed by the dialogue that he was saying, not the dialogue itself, but the way he was saying it, and even Venestra, who we thought were wooden in the past, her facial expressions and her acting and her eyes and stuff was making he was making her look like Meryl Streep. You know, it was absolutely shocking, and I'm really sorry. I have, you know, the dialogue where she asked him what he sensed and what he saw had happened, and he was describing it. I thought that was really good dialogue, but the way he delivered it was absolutely shocking, and I just thought, I don't know. I don't want to rag on the guy. You know, it's just that destroyed the episode for me. Whenever he came into a scene, I was just, oh my word. And
almost makes you miss Yord, doesn't it?
It does make me miss Yord a lot. I mean, I've got to be honest. Yord was like by the book Jedi. You know, I didn't have a problem with him, his character as much as such, but you know, it wasn't the best part of the show, so I didn't really mind when he got taken out. But this guy, wow, I'm not quite sure how he even got into the Jedi. You know, he doesn't seem a very confident guy. You know, you think a Jedi might come across as quite a confident person, and he just didn't have that. So yeah, this is definitely my weakest episode of the series so far. And if it wasn't for the Chimere Osha stuff, I don't know what I'd be able to say that was positive, to be honest with you. So yeah. Sorry.
Yeah,
I look at it a little different. I'm sorry. Go ahead, madam.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I've got to agree with you. To be honest, in my notes, it's like all I put was the Mog and Vanestra scenes, just not good, really, in my opinion. And I seem to use this word every week, but I feel like there's a lot of disjointed stuff going on in this series as a whole, and those interactions were just a little bit meh, and I felt like there were a few kind of unnecessary scenes in there.
Well, I honestly, as Vanestra, I just don't like the character. She's the worst Jedi ever, and she's more focused on the political than anything else. I mean, when you're talking about like, she almost steered it. She's trying to cover something up, like, you know, when Chimera's sitting there, he's talking. I mean, like, you know, he's seducing Osha to the dark side of the Force. I mean, we can all see that. And, you know, I mean, blatantly when he's in the pool, and then not so when he's just talking to her, trying to get her to try on the helmet, and which at the end when she does. But he said, when he talked about he was a Jedi, or he was at least a Padawan.
Yeah.
I think he was Vernestra's Padawan, and she gave him the scars. She has set this whole thing in motion before any of it happened. And now she's just trying to cover her own butt on this whole thing. I mean, everything she's doing is covered up. Like when Moog's sitting there and he's trying to explain what happens, she knows that May had a master. They've already discussed this. I mean, whether or not Sith Lord or anything like that, you know, I think that's one of the things the audience knows, that she may not, you know, certain characters, but she doesn't have that confirmed yet. But she knows there's another, you know, that like I said, May has a master and could have been there to do all this, but she still kind of let Moog think that it was Saul did this. She's trying to pin it all on him now.
Yeah.
And because that's why I don't think he's going to survive the season.
No.
She's going to kill him to cover it up. And I think it's going to come down to Vernestra doing it. And she's doing it for like some greater, she's going to justify it as it's some kind of greater good, but it's really just covering her mistakes, because I think all of this is her fault. She's clearly hiding something.
Yeah.
And, you know, and she's not telling the council. So like I said, she's more interested in politics than the will of the Force. And I mean, and this is why the Jedi Order falls 120 years from this point, you know, or 113 years from this point. It's just
absolutely
ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think they've already telegraphed to us how they're going to end the show, that Vanestra's going to, either Sol's going to be taken out by some other means, or she's going to take him out and then sweep it all under the carpet and report back to the Jedi Council that Sol turned, you know, into a bad guy and killed all of his you know, team when they went out to Kamar. I can't remember the name of the planet now.
Kofar.
Kofar, that's Kofar. Yes, I think that's pretty much been telegraphed now. That's going to happen, and in a way, it's kind of frustrating as an audience member, but I think it also makes a little bit of sense, because if she's the start of the bureaucracy and the, trying to keep everything clean and tidy that leads to the Jedi 100 or so years later becoming political animals rather than using the will of the Force, like Qui-Gon probably was one of the last of the Jedi to do so. So I actually don't dislike the storyline in the slightest. I think it's, it actually makes sense for what we've seen in the future or in our past. Yeah. But I just feel that this episode, as I think Adam said, you could have done all of the May Soul stuff in one scene. I think, they got on board. He instantly reveals that he knows that she's actually May, not Osha. And, they have a bit of a tussle or whatever. And then, she wakes up on the, in chains on the bed thing that she was on at the end of the episode. All that other stuff was just filler. And I think this episode, it would have been nice just to have done one episode with just Osha and Chimere on the unknown planet, which I think I know the name of.
Yeah, I think I do too.
Yeah. So yeah, I understand the storyline.
Wait, what's the planet?
I was going to say that's bullet points at the end, but if Matt wants to go for it.
No, yeah. Well, when we were watching it, my oldest son, he was like, he thought it was Octo.
No.
And I said, no, that's not right, because it doesn't really look like it other than its islands. And they just said unknown planet. And I'm sure at this point, the Jedi know where the first Jedi temple is. They're at the height of their influence and everything else. But I did a little digging, and there's a planet called Baldominic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess it's mentioned in the Plagueis novel.
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah. And it's like Martin and I were talking before. I've never read the book, but yeah, and it's a water planet with a bunch of islands. But the thing is there's a lot of cortosis on the planet, and so it really makes sense that that's this unknown planet is actually Baldominic.
In the Plagueis novel, Baldomic's where Plagueis kills Tenebrous, and it also appears in the Genndy Tartakovsky micro series, Clone Wars micro series, The Planet. Right. So it is actually in canon as well. So Matt's got it. I'm guessing, but I think Matt's got it 100% right. That probably is right. Yeah.
So do you think they'll reveal that at some point, or do you think it's just going to remain unknown planet?
Well, I think the fact that they've named it unknown planet rather than giving it its name is a big hint that it is Baldominic, because why would they do that otherwise? I think that we're going to get that reveal that perhaps ties in with the novels or stuff that's in Legends in the future. So, or they might be saving it for a second season, because I was reading an article today where they in fact do have a story outlined for a second and third season, but they are going to finish this season as if it was the only season, with small sort of mysteries still not discovered. But obviously it depends on the success of this season, and if the internet's to believed, I don't think we'll get a second season, so we'll see. But anyway, we're going off topic.
Yeah. One thing though, with I didn't mind the Soul May scene so much. I mean, I kind of agree it could have been a little more shortened up a little bit, but I like the fact that he kind of led her along, that let her believe that she had success, replaced Osha for a second, but then kind of reveal it's like he's actually using her because he knows that Chimere has Osha at this point, and he's driven to find her. He has a very strong connection to her. I mean, you've seen it through the show when he sees her as a little girl when they're just testing her, that it's like, he's like, there's a very much a caring, whether it's like, fatherly or whatever with her, but he does care for her a lot, even though she left the order.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, he definitely wants to protect her. And so that's what he was doing the whole time, led her along until he just finally had to stop, and he stunned her. And so he's basically going to use, because May has obviously been to this planet. We saw it in the first season, our first episode. But so I think, I don't mind it as much, might have been a better way to get there with, like you said, Martin,
Yeah.
to get to that part. But he's definitely going rogue.
Mm.
Soul
Yeah.
is, because he knows he can't. He's no time for the politics at this point. It's basically Osha's in danger. I don't have time for this. So he, because at first he tried to give the report, and then he realized. I think he realized when everything was back up, what was going to happen. They were going to take him back to Coruscant or whatever. I don't know if he's 100% sure Vernestra would try to cover it up or whatever, but he knows he can't rely on them right now. Because I've said it before, like he's the actor, because he's a huge Qui-Gon Jinn fan as well. And he's playing this like he's Qui-Gon Jinn. Like Soul is very very similar to Qui-Gon Jinn, but he's like Qui-Gon Jinn in his prime.
Yeah.
So he's not, he's one that's very much is going to just defy the council and do what's right.
I thought that this episode kind of carried on a little bit from last week, where we saw Soul lose it slightly to the dark side when he attacked Kymir, and he had to be stopped by Osha. I thought there was a slight hint of that again in this episode, where he was on his own working on that computer screen, and he just banged the table, and you could see the anger in him for what, about what just happened, and down on the planet. And I kind of liked that scene. I thought it was another good bit of acting from him, and I thought moments like that weren't a waste in his scenes. It was just all of the other stuff really that came along with it that I wasn't overly keen on. But I think overall for me this was mostly a filler episode, to be honest with you.
I think that covers most of the things. So let's go to our bullet points then. Matt, you said you've got some for us.
Okay. Well, it was like when they went back on the planet, when Vernestra and them got there, and the first thing they show is Jackie laying there, and I was like, too soon, man, too soon. I said, I love that character. I'm hoping the Vintage Collection gets a figure, because I think the Black Series already got it, of course. But I think there's when May kind of reset Pip, the droid, like reset his factories. I was like, it reminded me of Toy Story 2 when Jesse found Buzz Lightyear's Spanish mode. So I wondered if they swap them back.
Did you notice when the lights came back on Pip, they were red? I don't know if that's anything to go by.
I think she definitely reset him, because he was going nuts, because he knew, like Basil, Pip knew right away that wasn't Osha. And that's why, he had the little thing where he stomps on her Pip, or Osha stomps on her foot, he sprays grease in her face, and it was like, it was kind of goofy that they did that, and then she just reset him at that point, but it was, but they were definitely trying to, it's like at that point you're kind of as a casual watcher probably like, well, how come the Jedi Master hasn't noticed this? But he has. As we find out later, he knew it was May. But even the part where he comes up and hugs her, you're thinking, oh, he's gonna knock her out or whatever, and he's, no, I'm sorry, and everything else. Because honestly, I think he's sorry for what happened with May as well, because he thought she died 16 years ago. As we're seeing it now, maybe he knows she didn't die, and he was again, he could be complicit in whatever is going on with Vernestra. But
there's definitely more to that story.
There is definitely more, but I don't think he does not want to harm May as much as he cares for Osha as well. I think there's probably a way he could try to, redeem May as well. I don't know. Like I said, Vernestra, obviously, I think she's ultimately responsible for everything we're seeing here with Kymir. I think, she's the one that gave him the scars, because it really looks like, if you look at the scar on his back, it looks like a whip hit him.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
And then and then honestly, other than they had it in the preview where she uses the laser whip, but honestly, I think them showing that in the same episode you see his scars. I was saying 2 weeks ago they were just beating you over the head that Kymir was the Sith Lord. and it's like, and to the point where it's like, no, they're being too obvious about this. It's got to be somebody else, But so I think they're doing the same thing here. That she's the one that scarred him, and she's the one. She's the catalyst for him falling to the dark side.
Yeah.
They talked about Osha's strength in the Force, and he's talking about don't be like dogmatic like the Jedi, and but it's obviously he's trying to seduce her to the dark side. Like I said, blatantly, like when he was getting out of the pool, and not so subtle with the way he's talking to her, and it seems to kind of work to a point where she puts the helmet on at the end. And so there's that, and again, they kind of touch it. She left the order because she failed, I think is what she said. Yeah, like what was her failure? And I'm hoping that that's what they talk about. Either we see it from Soul's perspective next week, or we that's something that I know they're going to show it to us, but it's just that's the big question right now is what happened to her.
Yeah.
And why did she leave the order? Yeah. So there's that one. Like I said, Moog, we're talking about him. I wrote down useful idiot. I mean, honestly, because like the way Vernestra's trying to steer him into thinking that Soul did everything, did all that stuff on the planet there. Yeah, and Kamir, I think we'll find out why, what happened to him, how he became the Sith, and I don't want to like spoil it, but I've seen hints that he's not the only Sith that we'll see in this. So I have a feeling at the end, because like you said, like last week, and they did it again this week with Kamir. Is you listen, they're playing the Kylo Ren music with him. So if is that the beginning of the Knights of Ren kind of thing here? But the Knights of Ren aren't Force users, other than Kylo, that we saw.
Yeah.
But there's something there, so that maybe there is like an actual Sith Lord, and it's like he's going to come slap him down because they have the great plan of taking down the Republic and the Jedi, and he could be messing with it because they're not ready yet.
Yeah.
So maybe we do see Darth Tenebrous. I still think it's a little too soon for Plagueis, but
okay.
I don't know. We'll see. I think there's definitely a lot to cover in the next 2 episodes. So I am looking forward to it.
Cool.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. Martin, should we go on to you?
Yes. Okay. I will try and be quick. I wasn't a huge fan of how they reset Pip. I felt it was a bit like turning my iPhone off the way they did it with pressing 2 buttons. I really wasn't a fan of that. Too real world for me. And going back to what you were saying about the red eyes, yes, they did turn red, and it reminded me of what happens to C-3PO in The Rise of Skywalker when they.
I didn't want to bring that up, but it reminded me of the same.
Yeah. I've only ever seen that film once, but I remembered that.
Yeah.
Osha, I thought interesting. If you look at her outfit that she wore in this episode, it's grey. So she's gone white to grey now. So she's in the middle of choosing whether she's going to go to the dark side or the light. I thought that was a nice little character choice they put in there. We mentioned Baldemnik, the planet. 6 episodes in, have we seen an astromech droid or a protocol droid yet? No, very, very odd, and I'm not sure why that's happened. But maybe on, guys,
it's too early for them.
Would be nice. Yeah. Interesting how at the end of the episode, our supposed good guy Soul has May bound on a table and about to give her his version of events, while the supposed bad guy is letting Osha wander free and to choose whether to stay or to go when he's telling her his story. So I thought that was quite a good dichotomy of good and bad, actually kind of switching to get that person to turn to their side. I thought that was quite interesting. And come on, I mean, hasn't the Jedi Temple doctors not prescribed Vernestra some Dramamine for her travel sickness? I mean, I've never ever in my life heard of a Jedi that gets space sick. I mean, come on, guys.
There's another scene that was just.
Well, then she said she doesn't get sick, but she doesn't. It was like she doesn't prefer. She doesn't
travel well or something.
Yeah, she doesn't like it. It makes her uncomfortable or something goofy.
Yeah, I mean, apparently in the novels she can fly a starship by using the Force, So it's kind of odd that all of a sudden now, she can't go to space. I don't know. Is she even Venestra? Who knows? But I mean, yeah, I hate to finish the episode on a bit of a negative, but yeah, I really thought that was awful bit of dialogue. So yeah, that's what I've
There's
got.
awful dialogue in every Star Wars. I kind of
there is. Yeah, I don't mean to.
whatever.
I've been quite positive about the show, but that was just one thing that popped out. I was like, oh dear, it just doesn't fit. It didn't fit just in Star Wars for me personally. Anyway, yeah.
Absolutely right. Well, that's our thoughts for the episode. We've got to give our rating then. So Matt, let's go to your rating first.
For this one, I'm probably the most generous of the three of us for the conversation. I'm giving it about a 7.
Okay.
It's again, like I said before, this is you had all the action from last week. We needed an episode for the characters, to kind of breathe a bit and grow the characters a little bit. And I think they did that. So it was okay. But yeah, like you said, for the things that we talked about here that were a little weird, and stuff, pacing is always going to be a problem with these shows and everything else. It's but so I kind of gave it a 7. Like last week I was 8.5, 9, so this week it's, dial back a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Martin?
Well, I think I started off giving it a 7, the show, and then I went down to a 6 and then back up to a 7. And then last week I gave it 8. Unfortunately, this week it's got to be a 4. I groaned so much during this episode that I was kind of didn't feel like I was watching the same show at certain points. So yeah, I'm really disappointed. So unfortunately, I've got to give it a 4.
Yeah. Well, I've got it down for a 4 as well. It was a bit slow. Some really poor interactions in there, but still some mystery and still some intrigue left. So I am still excited to see where it's going to go. And
absolutely,
as we keep saying, we'll judge it on the series as a whole. So
absolutely.
Well, I think that's it for today then. Episode 6 couldn't really top episode 5, but we always knew that was going to be the case. Let us know your opinions and leave that in the comments below, because we always like to read those. Matt, thank you for coming back to discuss this.
Hey, thanks for having me. This has been fun.
Yeah, it's been good. You got anything going on your channel at the moment? Anything to mention?
I've got a few new figures that I'm gonna kind of do a review of. One is the new R2D2. If you guys thought this review was negative, I haven't seen anything yet on this thing. Other than I'm still trying to get the room together to do a room tour.
Yeah. Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So make sure make sure you all go and subscribe to Matt so that you don't miss the room tour when that comes out. We'll be back next week for the penultimate episode. Subscribe to us so you don't miss that. Hit like on this one. We'll catch you next time. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.